You're on record.
All right, you're ready? Good. The meeting of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills Planning Board for Monday, March 3rd, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. Announcement is made that adequate notice of this meeting has been given and that it is being conducted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 at SEC of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Laura, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Didich.
Here.
Mr. DiPiero.
Here.
Councilwoman Hernandez. Here. Mr. Mealy.
Here.
Mr. Mapp.
Present.
Mr. Napolitano.
Here.
Mr. Shaw.
Here.
Ms. Smith. Here. Chairman Dinsmore.
Here.
We also have our board planner, Ms. Winter, our board engineer, Mr. Canjiano, and our board attorney, Ms. Steinley.
Excellent. This meeting is open to the general public. Is there anyone here who has something to bring to this board's attention that is not on our agenda for tonight? Hearing and seeing no one come forward, we have some correspondence. First item here is correspondence received from Kevin Coakley of Connell Foley LLP dated February 4th, requesting a 3-year extension of approvals of Resolution 22:529 from December 12th, 2022 through December 12th, 2027 for preliminary and final major site plan with C variance. Are they asking for, I guess they're not, we gave them a major soil moving permit. If you could discuss what their rights are and what...
I think there's a representative here tonight, right?
If you would come forward and identify yourself.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Herschel Rose from Connell Foley. Yeah, for the applicant. Represent MCC 7 LLC, who's received this approval in December 12th, 2022. And pursuant to municipal land use law, the automatic 2 years of protection from changes in zoning expired on December 12th.
Can you use the microphone, please?
Sorry?
Sit down.
Better?
Yes.
Okay. So our approvals expired December 12th, 2024. And pursuant to the municipal land use law, section 40:55D-52, we're requesting a 3-year extension of time to develop that property and maintain the protections from zoning changes.
So typically we see extension requests 1 year at a time, but the applicant's requesting 3 years just because they've had delays. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the statute speaks to the 1 year extension, which is more typical, but it also speaks to extension for reasonable amounts of time under certain circumstances. And in this case, the original applicant was the contract purchaser of the property, and they terminated the contract in April of 2024, and we received resolution compliance by August of 2024. And during that time, we've been diligently searching for a new buyer due to the size of this development and the specific use, the limited continuum of care facility. It's been a bit of a more lengthy process than, or perhaps a more normal development. And as such, we're seeking 3 years to complete this process, to retain protection from zoning during that time. Specifically, subsection E of the statute I just quoted, 40:55D-52, asks the board to consider, among other considerations, economic conditions in making that determination. And so for the reasons I've stated, the economic conditions require a 3-year, or warrant a 3-year extension at this time. I have a representative of the applicant here, Mr. Keenan Hughes, who's available to answer any fact-specific questions related to our client's application.
All right, what are the applicable rules as you say? I mean, let me start by saying we almost never give more than a 1-year extension.
Yep, so the board can decide to grant just a 1-year extension or to up to the 3-year extension. Under the land use law, they're permitted 3 one-year extensions before they have to renotice for any further requests.
So conceivably, we could give them the 3 years, 1 year at a time, and make them come back every year
And give an update?
and give an update, or we could ask them to come back in 2 years, or whatever, I'm gonna ask the board's pleasure here. I'm not gonna ask for facts from the applicant. You've already told us what's happened, as far as we need to know. But what we need to do is determine, are we willing to, under these special circumstances, because the original applicant is no longer here, give them 3 years, or the board prefer to stick with a shorter time frame and ask for an update? Michael, please.
I would recommend that we give them the 3 years, but they come back every year to explain to us what their progress is.
Can we do that?
But what would compel them to come back?
Yeah,
That's the way I would make my motion, is that 3 one-year extensions, but they have to come back each year to update us.
well, would we be satisfied if they were to send a letter every year saying what the status was?
That's up to the rest of the board. I would just say, I'd prefer to have them appear each year.
I feel uncomfortable doing anything where we ask them to appear each year without giving them the 3 years anyway.
Why not 2 years?
Oh,
Then that's more of a compromise, and the way the market is right now, it's gonna probably be 2 years.
Can I just ask, I mean, this was a few years ago. I don't recall what this development is or where it is. Can we
Well, then maybe we should call a witness and
just tell us what the land use is and where it's located, if nothing else?
that's true. We may have some members here who were not there at the time.
So, Mr. Hughes can speak to the precise location, but this is a limited continuum of care facility consisting of 150 units.
Can you pull the microphone closer?
It's a limited continuum of care facility consisting of 150 units. That's 52 assisted living units, 28 memory care units, and various other appurtenances, including parking, driveways, landscaping, all that.
Actually, I'm going to ask the lawyer's opinion here. Given the variances and the approvals we gave you, if they were to decide not to do a limited care facility of any sort, they'd want to do something else, what do they have the right to do right now, or is it limited to just this?
What's the underlying zoning on the property before the approval? Was it an office building?
I have that right with me, just give me one.
I think I know what this is. This is next to the hotel. That's on Interpace Parkway, right off
Yes.
Cherry Hill Road.
That's correct.
It's a lot of, it's woods and trees.
That's right.
And the hotel was Sonesta and it's something else now, I believe. It is a Hilton now, I believe. Is that right?
I thought it was still Sonesta, but that's.
Yeah, I think it
directly
got
east
bought
of
out
the
by
parcel.
somebody. But you guys are gonna go right next to it.
Correct.
It was, you had to clear the land. I remember this, we were like, why would you put this next to Route 80? And the guy was saying, oh, the people that live there like the sound of cars going by. So we were like, oh, that sounds pretty good then. But is this gonna stay, this assisted living facility? Is that guaranteed, or are you guys gonna change that use? That's what I'm mostly concerned with.
I'll just swear you in just to provide testimony. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, your business address, and your title for the record.
Sure. It's Keenan Hughes, Hughes. I'm the Vice President for Planning and Development at SJP Properties, located at 389 Interpace Parkway in Parsippany.
Thank you.
I think to answer the chairman's question, if I may, certainly any substantive changes to this plan, including a change of use, we would have to return to the board for a new site plan
That's
application.
what I wanted to get that on record.
Yeah. And just very briefly, for a little context here, the applicant that originally obtained this approval essentially did not eventually close, transferred the approval back to SJP Properties, the applicant, in the spring of last year. And we just received resolution compliance late last summer. So we're now diligently doing outreach to potential purchasers, we would like to move forward on the approval. It's been a difficult economic environment in this industry in particular in the last couple of years, but we're optimistic that we will be able to find.
So the longer an extension we give you, the easier it makes your sales job.
I think that's accurate, yeah, and I think even if it's 1 year, we're definitely going to be back here at the end of the year, seeking another extension. So it's going to take a little time to put this all together, but just know that if there's any changes, obviously we would have to return to the board for an amended or new approval.
Okay. Any other questions by members of the board?
Sorry, so you're looking to find another buyer for the property, but you would keep this site plan as the assisted living facility?
Yeah, we're seeking to extend the existing approval, which
Okay.
runs with the land. And we're seeking a partner or purchaser to basically implement the project as approved.
So they would come to you with whatever they offer you, and you say, this is the plan we have in order, it's the assisted living facility, and just hope that they would do that? Is that how the
Yes,
process
that's
works?
correct.
Okay,
And if there's any changes, it comes back to the board.
right,
And
okay.
So an example would be like the B10 Hilton project that we had. Another applicant got the approval for that warehouse, and then they sold their rights, and then the B10 came in, made some changes, but they had to come back to us
Okay.
to make those changes. So that would be potentially the same process here. If you found a buyer that wanted something slightly different, they would still have to come back for amended site plan approval.
Okay. Is there anybody willing to put forth a motion, or is there a further discussion to be had?
Didn't Mike make a motion or not? Or was he just saying he would make a
There was,
motion?
there was no second.
Okay, all right. Well, if that's the case, I'll make a motion to grant a 2-year extension.
Any further discussion? Do I hear a second?
Second, Smith.
Nora, would you call the roll, please?
Didich,
Yes.
DePiero,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Mealy,
Yes.
Math,
Yes.
Napolitano,
Abstain?
Shaw,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right, we'll give you 2 years,
Thank you.
and we'll see you in 2 years. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Now we move on to the resolutions. We have a series of resolutions here. Nora, do you have
Everyone has their, copy of it.
okay. So, I guess we start with, application 24:532. Do I have,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mealy?
a motion to approve application number 24:532, Damodar Mahajan, 470 Troy Road, block 733.01, lot 15.02, zone R2, major soil moving permit.
Do we have a second?
Second, Dadich.
Nora, would you call the roll, please?
Didich,
Yes.
DePiero,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Mealy,
Yes.
Math,
Yes.
Napolitano.
Yes?
Smith,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right, now 25:504.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
motion to
Napolitano.
approve a resolution for application 25:504, Silo Andecan, 7 Puddingstone Road, Block 9, Lot 9, Zone R1, Major Soil Moving Permit.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Nora, would you call the roll, please? Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
DePiero,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Math,
Yes.
Napolitano.
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. Now 24:528.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Didich.
a motion to approve application number 24:528, B10, Hilton Court Owner LLC, 2 Hilton Court Block 202, Lot 3.10, minor site plan to modify building height, removal of drive ramp, relocation of parking spaces, and setback improvement.
Do we have a second?
Second, Mealy.
Very
And-
good.
Didich,
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Nora, there were just a couple revisions from the applicant's attorney, just to clarify that the application also included the amended major soil moving approval, and to make some minor fixes to some of the numbers. Like for the building height, it's plus or minus 40.8 feet instead of 40.38. And then the loading dock size is 13 by 60 feet instead of 13 and a half by 60 feet. And then the drive-in ramp 16 feet by 60 feet instead of 15 by 60. And then just some other revisions. Instead of EVSC, it's going to be make-ready spaces. So
Thank
those
you,
are the-
ma'am.
You happy with those?
Yes. Second.
Didich,
Yes.
DePiero,
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Mealy.
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Napolitano.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right, now 24:531 PSP Saxon.
This one I also had a couple edits. The, on the first page, the address for 7 Campus NJ LLC was incorrect, so that's corrected. And then on the second page, Exhibit A1, the date is February 10th, consisting of 2 sheets. And there was a highlighted section on page 5, and that will be eliminated, so that's correct.
All right, do I have a motion? It's not our usual cast of characters here, so.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for application number 24:531, PSIP Saxum, 7 Campus Drive, Block 202, Lot 3.08.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Napolitano.
DePiero,
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Napolitano.
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. Next is for Gate Hall. Statement for basis and preliminary investigation of ANR. Do I have somebody moving?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
motion to approve the resolution for Gate Hall, Block 175, Lot 52, Zone ROL, statement for basis and preliminary investigation of area in need of redevelopment.
Do I have a second?
I'll second Hernandez.
Very good. Nora, call the roll, please.
DePiero,
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Napolitano.
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. Now, 2 Sylvan Block 202, statement for basis again.
Okay, I'm allowed to make the motion, right?
Absolutely.
I'll make the motion to move 2 Sylvan Way, Block, :202, Lot 1.1, Zone ROL, statement for basis and preliminary investigation of area needed redevelopment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
DePiero,
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Napolitano.
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right. That's the largest section of our agenda tonight. Let's see. We move on to the actual agenda of cases we have. And we have application number 24:510, Knoll Manor Associates, North Beverwick Road, Block 497, Lot 2, minor site plan with C variance for a maintenance yard, carried from January 13th, 2025. Should we say anything?
So this application was originally heard on November 18th, 24, carried to January 13th, and further carried to tonight's meeting to make some additional changes.
Very good.
Good evening, Mark Rothberg on behalf of the applicant. And with me again tonight is Michael Dipple, who I believe already has been sworn in. And we also have later on a testimony from planner Alex Dougherty, which will follow Mr. Dipple's testimony.
And Mr. Dipple was previously sworn and still remains under oath today.
Yes. I would just like to state that we've had the opportunity to review the comments from the board at our last hearing, and the board's expert pursuant to their January 10th suggestions with regard to our application, as well as the February 26, 2025 engineering comments and recommendations as well, and I believe that we incorporated the concerns and the suggestions, so I'm pleased to have Mr. Dipple go through the modifications to our plans for the site tonight.
Thank you. So I have up on the easel a set of the plans that were submitted. The date is February 17th, 2025. It consists of 8 sheets. So I'm just going to jump into the site plan, which is sheet CO. Well, I'm going to start with CO3 because I just want to clarify something, and that has to do with the parking. There was a comment that was in some of the review letters about the elimination of spaces, and we went out to confirm the number of spaces. So there are no spaces really slated to be removed. The survey was just erroneous because the striping is a little bit unclear. But there's a wide opening where the gate is, and there are no spaces striped there. So we count 18 spaces, there will still be 18 spaces there. So there were never really 21. It was on the survey. That was an error, but if you go out there, and I was there tonight just to confirm again, because the last time I was there was snow on the ground and I couldn't see anyway, but we're not changing any of the spaces, essentially. So if I go to sheet CO4, which is entitled Site Plan, we made a few changes, and I'm going to bring up an exhibit. Might as well do that now. So I don't know which one we're up to, but this is a revised plan.
I think we're at A4.
Okay, so I'm going to say this is A4. I'm just going to put today's date on it, which is March 3rd. So it's entitled Site Landscaping Plan, Color Rendering, CO4. So we made the changes, as I said, and we rendered it. The biggest change you'll see probably from where you're sitting is there's more landscaping around the entire area. So at the recommendation of your professionals and the board, we met with the forester, and we conducted that meeting sometime in January. And Mr. Walsh, right? James Walsh, I believe, yeah. So he was very accommodating, met us out there the next morning after I spoke to him, and we kind of went over everything. And really, there are very few trees that are worth saving. And I depict them here. I think we came up with these 4 that are really worth saving. Everything between the apartment building and the maintenance area is really just kind of overgrown weeds, and it's been there probably and allowed to grow wildly like that for about 70 years. So it's tall, it's scraggly, a lot of it is dead or dying or in distress. So he agreed that if we took everything down there and we put the arborvitae along the west side, and again, the page will say north is generally to the top of the page. So he said, put the arborvitae along the west side and along the south side, wrap it up to where it meets the back of the residential property. And then within that 12-foot area that you're proposing, put Leland cypress. So that's a big, bushy, wide tree. And then in the front, you can do a mix of evergreens to come up with something. That was his recommendation. So we took good notes, and we did exactly that. We preserved the 3 trees. One here is a very large tree, and in fact, it's kind of on the property line and kind of in the neighbor's fence, and it's really, really big. It looks like it's been there a long time. So we're gonna leave that one, and then just add all those trees. One of the other changes we made, the board's recommendation was to reduce the number of containers. These roll-off containers or dumpsters down to 5. So we show 5. We're proposing them on a concrete pad. I think that came up in the meeting and from your professionals' review. So we have a detail of a large concrete pad. I think it's 30 by 60. And just to the west of that, we have what we're calling a temporary material storage area. It's generally appliances, and one of the board members, I don't think he's here again tonight, But one of the members of the board suggested that we put a small fence up there and corral some of those things, and we agree with that. So we're going to put a small piece of chain link fence just to the west of that dumpster pad, and that can be the storage for those things that just need a temporary place to go until they're picked up. And it's typically appliances, it's refrigerators and things like that, and our testimony has always been that they do not stay there long, that they're placed there until someone with a pickup truck can come and take them away, and it's typically the next day or maybe the following day, but they don't sit there for a long time. We still have the masonry maintenance area. I stopped by there tonight. There is some, changes every time I go. Sometimes it's completely vacant. Tonight there was cinder block and some brick, and it looks like as the weather has now hopefully turned for the better, maybe some of this concrete work and masonry work can be done, and it looks like they're gearing up for that. We've reduced the number of material stockpile areas, like the stone and the mulch and things like that, down to 4, and we've added a shed. It should be noted that we did have a shed there, there was a shed there, and I think the town, we were told to remove it, but so the shed was removed, but now it was recommended that we have a small shed, and we placed it as far away from the residential area as possible, and that would just be a small shed to hold, any kind of liquid or anything that you just don't want exposed to the elements. If someone brings a small gas can or something there to start up a machine or a mower or something, they could place it in that shed. Otherwise, it's generally the same plan. We have the retaining wall. It's all compacted gravel. We have a drainage inlet there. So those are the real general, changes that we made between the last submission and this submission. And then the rest of my plans just kind of either it's grading and soil erosion and things like that. So that's where we landed, and we did get review letters from your engineer and your planner. And if I could just go through, if you'll allow me to go through the engineering comments, I think they start on page 2, and it talks about the forester, which we did. We took the recommendation and met with him, and that is directly his recommendation. Sorry, I misunderstood this one at first. In terms of the retaining wall and the trees, we did push this back to 12 feet, and we walked in this area and looked at it the best we could. The ground was slightly snow covered, but I think we can fit the wall in there. And the wall does get very small by the time we get back toward the back area. And that tree is very old, and I don't think it's going to be compromised. The grade lifts up there, so we're just formalizing this grade just so we can get these Leland cypress in. So the grade does jump up from that tree and kind of level off today.
As far as the evergreen plantings, did the forester have any recommendation as to the 12 feet? In other words,
Yes. I asked specifically, is the 12 feet adequate to get a good buffer? He said, with the Leland cypress, yes. And I said, well, give them room to grow between the retaining wall and the property line, and his answer was yes. So I asked specifically because there is a situation where a variance is required for the 12-foot setback that we're requiring, but we asked specifically, is this 12 feet adequate enough to accommodate that? And this wall felt so. Comment 5 deals with this triangular area behind the dumpsters. We positioned the dumpsters in this fashion so they would have access and they could be wheeled off and everything like that. And that creates this triangle here. I don't believe that the applicant has an issue there with the fence moving to the north behind that. However, it's just creating a little more landscaping between one set of dumpsters and another. That's really it, because the area just immediately to the south is where the residents are allowed to put their trash. So I don't think there's any argument there. I just think that it's just an odd area because right now the pavement goes off on an angle, and I'd really like to keep those dumpsters kind of in this direction so they're able to be accessed. 6 deals with just an operation and maintenance manual. We've agreed to that. 7 deals with the type of equipment expected. We're not really putting equipment here other than some small, and we've testified to this, some of the small masonry equipment. I was out there one time and there was a mixer there. It was only about maybe 4 feet tall. It was just a small batch concrete mixer that the mason had there. That's all I've ever seen there, other than the large piece of machinery that had been there for a long time and had since been removed. So there's no machinery that comes there on a regular basis or anything. We did talk about snow plows. Snow plows may be stored there from time to time. We had probably a snowier winter than most in the past. And there is an opportunity to maybe just place the plows there from time to time if need be. So that would be kind of the equipment that may show up there, but there's no storage of backhoes or anything like that, or bobcats or anything like that. And then number 8 deals with the shed, and again, we are proposing a shed. There was a comment in one of the letters about the height of the shed. I think this is your standard shed that you could pick up at a home improvement store like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, where if that's more than 8 or 10 feet, I'd be surprised. I think your accessory structure is allowed to be 15 feet in height, and it would clearly be less than that. There's no model that's chosen, but on our drawings on, I think it's the last sheet, we did depict, or we did add an image of what we were thinking. So if I look at the shed, it's a 6 by 12 shed. So if that's 6 feet, that looks like it's no greater than about 8 feet, 9 feet in height. And that's kind of what we had in mind. So I don't know if there's anything else from me, but.
Just that I believe that we incorporated all the comments and suggestions with regard to our prior plan, and I'm happy to say that I believe, with the forester's input, we're okay with the recommended conditions that have been suggested. In the event our application is approved, we would consent to the, I believe, A through E conditions with regard to the approval. We consent to that.
Okay. Mr. Canjiano, do you have any questions?
No, the applicant throughout this process has addressed our comments, and the items on our letter just keep getting fewer and fewer. So that's good. And then just for clarification, just on your testimony, so you did meet with the forester. My question is on the survivability once you excavate, albeit only a couple feet, and you're a few feet away from the tree. What was the forester's opinion of the tree along the side property line, survivability with the work proposed?
So we pointed out that we would be putting a small retaining wall there, and it's my recollection that his comment was that tree is very old. I don't know how long it's going to be there, but that would be a heck of a job to get that out of here because of where it sits and how big it is. It's multiple trunks. So I said, yeah, we're changing the grade, but not significantly over here. You can see there's a grade change. We're just moving it back and putting a wall. I think it was a very passive comment. That should be fine. That's really as far as it went.
My only recommendation would be for the area, so the wall is actually, the back side of the wall faces the yard, and the front side of the wall, the face of the wall, faces the neighbor.
That's correct, yes.
Would be to minimize the excavation and the regrading in the vicinity of the drip line of that tree. Basically trying, and you don't have to excavate down as much And you're only going down 18 inches or so, but that would disturb the root structure.
Yeah, I
So
think,
it appears to me that you probably could keep that existing grade on the front side of the wall, in that area adjacent between the property line and the wall. Right in the drip line.
I see, yeah. The grade, you can see all of so what happens is, right from the neighbor's property, it goes up on like a 45-degree angle, and you can see it in the contour lines, that it jumps up very quick. So
you could probably keep that, is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah. So we'll work that around that tree the best we can. But the drip line is literally like, maybe 40, 50 feet in diameter.
Root structure, which is closer than that.
Yeah, we would be happy to keep the root structure. It's a mature tree. We wouldn't want, if we excavated and ruined the root structure, the tree would be gone. So we appreciate that. We would regrade around it so the tree isn't compromised.
The grading in the vicinity of that tree as is.
We can modify the plan. It's just, the drip line is big. I would say I'd probably go out a bit. I think my point was on the high side, it's a kind of a false grade anyway. I'm not so sure the feeder roots come up, but it's kind of a false grade as it is now. But I'll try to work something to try to protect it.
So that was my comment on that one. And that triangular area, you commented on it, that's good. Yeah, it's probably will be maintained better by the facilities landscapers if you do pull the fence in and don't leave that area there. They'll have a better shot of maintaining that lawn when they can see it from the parking lot.
Okay, so we'll do that. We'll pull the fence in behind those roll-off containers, and then we'll fix something up here in that area. Okay.
Those are my only two comments.
Ms. Winter, did you have some?
No, just the shed, we wanted to confirm that it was going to be compliant with the accessory building height.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
And then there's, due to the shed and the additional concrete pad, there's a slight increase in building coverage and impervious coverage that I'm sure your planner will address the variances for.
So just to set that up, we didn't calculate that. We just admit that it would go up slightly by a 30 by 60 pad, and I think your letter kind of addresses that's typically referred to as just a administrative change or what. I'm sorry, I don't have the wording in front of me, but we agree. So that pad does create a little more impervious coverage. And the shed, of course, even though 6 by 12 increases the building coverage, so we don't really know what the building coverage is for the entire lot, nor do we know what the impervious coverage is. We're just agreeing that we're already in a variance situation, and that would slightly exacerbate that. So we are seeking relief for a slight increase in building and impervious coverage.
It's a de minimis increase. I think it worked out to less than 0.1% over the whole site.
Yes.
So.
And I think the board suggested to have the concrete under and we were happy with that as opposed to just gravel. So we were amenable to that. Thank you.
Other members of the board have, Michael?
Yeah, just one question. Is that lot used exclusively for Knoll Manor?
Yes.
Or is there any occasion when someone's using that lot for work on different properties?
The answer is no. It's exclusively for Knoll Manor.
Okay.
Other members of the board?
There's, just for the record, there's 1,100 units. There's more than enough work that's being done, and it's an old apartment complex, so there's more than enough work to keep that maintenance yard busy and renovating 1,100, maintaining 1,100 units.
Okay, thank you.
And the vacancy rate is very little, so that's a good thing. So it's not that they're renovating the entire project, it's just repairs ongoing that's required.
Other members of the board have any questions or comments at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor, you have another witness?
I do. At this time, I would call out Dougherty, planner.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
Certainly. Alexander Dougherty, last name is Dougherty, professional planner. Address is 136 Route 10, East Hanover, New Jersey. I am a licensed professional planner, PP as well as AICP. I believe this might be my first time in front of the planning board. I'm here quite often in front of the zoning board. I testify in this capacity on a weekly and daily basis. I'm a member of the APA New Jersey. I present the League of Municipalities, State Redevelopment Conference, my education at a Rutgers-Klaustein with a master's in city and regional planning. I'm the supervising planner for the town of Dover. I've been accepted everywhere I've testified to. My licenses are good and current.
Any questions about the qualifications of this witness? Counselor?
Request that Mr. Dougherty be qualified as our expert planner.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
So before the board, apologize. We have, as you've heard many times over, an application before you to essentially enhance and renovate the maintenance yard at the condos at the manor. 1,100 units, approximately. Here, it's
Just for correction, it's not condos, it's apartments.
Apartments, sorry.
Rentals.
49-acre site, one storage yard. So as you heard, there's a lot of work here. I like to think of this as maintenance yard, storage yard, in the preparations you heard. Fairly big site, 49 acres. There's a lot of grass to be cut, a lot of trees to maintain, a lot of landscaping, a lot of plowing, a lot of staging, a lot of maintenance of these structures, etc. So this is kind of the missing piece of the puzzle. There are some variances that exist there today, and there are some new variances on the table. I think the big one is we're not reducing any parking, as you've heard, but we do have some uptick in some existing conditions and variances. For purposes of building coverage, as your planner noted, we are increasing building coverage. I think the shed is coming out to a little over 70 square feet, about 72, 75 square feet. So we do have an uptick. 20% is required. We are over that 20%. And then again, we have an uptick in the building coverage, the impervious coverage. With that shed and with that concrete pad, we're looking about a little over 2,000 square feet of additional impervious coverage. 40% is required. The site as it exists today is over 75%. So we are exacerbating these two by way of variances here. And then we also have the minimum landscaping buffer where 20 feet is required. We're proposing 12. And I think in collaboration with the tree specialist and the arborist, as you've heard, that 12-foot can adequately supply a buffer against a residential property. We have, I believe it's 909 Knowles Road, adjacent to this storage yard here. It's one of those uses that certainly can be unsightly. Nobody wants to live next to a maintenance storage yard, mechanic, apparatus here. I think what we have here is an opportunity to enhance this area on the site. And certainly beautify it and certainly make it more efficient and attractive. To what extent can a storage yard, maintenance yard be attractive? I think with the landscaping we have here, we certainly can note that these will be year-round green, evergreen species, so we won't have the foliage coming down and having those unsightly conditions. So to what extent this will be visible at full maturity, I'm not a landscape specialist, but it looks pretty packed in there. From what I hear, the township's tree specialist is satisfied with what's proposed. Where we can save trees, we certainly will. Nobody wants to take down trees that are unwarranted, But I think what we have here is a project where, when we look at the application as it stands today, we have some existing variances here. Front yard setback, 50 feet is required. I think we're at 36 feet. Minimum side yard setback, 25 feet is required. I believe we're at 20. So we have some existing conditions and we have some new exacerbated conditions. Collectively, I think we can package these variances up under the C2, where the benefits of this application as a whole, they substantially outweigh any detriments that would be proposed. This is not a new apartment building, a housing. This is an open air kind of maintenance yard, if you will. You heard mulch, landscaping, storing the plow sheets there, having a shed to store gasoline and various other, flammable, toxic, materials that we certainly don't want to store out in the open. When we look at this application as a whole, it's site betterment. The zoning here, I think, works here. It's a better zoning alternative than strict adherence. We do have some existing conditions around us. The storage yard, maintenance yard has to be functional to a capacity. I think, this collaborative effort being in front of the board a couple times and working back with the team and what's needed, I think we've hit on something a little bit more palatable. And the application as a whole would advance many purposes of the municipal land use law. Purpose A, for the general welfare of the community. Again, this is a maintenance. These structures here, the 1,100 dwelling units, looked on the Mod 4 data, built in 1960. So they're not old, but they're getting there. They're going to need a little bit more maintenance. It's a fairly large site. Certainly, purpose I for a desirable visual environment. Those who have seen this site in its current condition and what's being proposed, I think we can agree that this is a more desirable visual arraignment. I think we've toned it down, chopped where we could, dropping a couple containers, a couple storage bins, areas. And with that being said, I think, certainly more efficient use of land, appropriate locations. This has always acted as a maintenance storage yard. Certainly this renovation to it brings it to a higher standard and certainly more attractive conditions here associated that I think ultimately the benefits aren't just felt here on this site, but also can be felt, with the surrounding properties and the adjacent neighbor to kind of clean up the site and bring it to active use. With that being said, given, the collaborative effort here, I don't believe there's anything left that hasn't been addressed or unresolved by way of the engineering and planning. The planning memo certainly outlines in great detail. And if we look at it, the relief here, again, the building coverage is a slight uptick for that shed, 72 square feet. The building, the lot coverage is increased by a little over 2,000 square feet. But I think what we have here is ultimately the benefits here would certainly outweigh the detriments. From a planning perspective, I don't see any substantial detriment here. I see nothing but improvements. With that being said, the C2 criteria is the Poland case. Again, the benefits substantially outweighing the detriments. I don't see any substantial detriments. Any detriments here. I see nothing but substantial positive investment here. That certainly is site-specific and provide a better zoning alternative for the use. And again, this use feeds a 49-acre development site and provides that service here. So with that, I'll conclude. I believe the criteria has been met and approval would be warranted. Again, this is a maintenance yard for a 49-acre, 1,100-unit complex, and we're certainly bringing this area into more productive, visually aesthetic standards that I think add value to everything with this site.
Just lastly, our goal in coming before the board was to reach a resolution with the township and satisfy the concerned neighbors with regard to my client's operation of the maintenance yard, which wasn't delegated, no areas, it was just basically used however it was being used. The board would recall the first hearing night, there were many neighbors that came not only to the board but afterwards, and I had discussions with them as to what their concerns were, in addition to the concerns which the board had with their engineer. But our purpose was not only to satisfy the board's requirement, but also, and the township's requirement as far as coming here for the application, but also the neighboring. We were sensitive and we took into consideration as far as buffering and delegating certain areas on the property for, the benefit of, the township, our development, and the neighboring units. So we're pleased. There was nothing unreasonable or any conditions that the board wanted to address that we weren't willing to satisfy for the benefit of the neighbors, our client, and the township concerned. As our planner stated, the increase in the coverage was to incorporate the suggestions from the board, and we were more than happy to do that as well. So I believe we have proposed with the help of the board, a good plan for this maintenance yard. Again, it's been used for 40 years. It's the only available property on the site that's open that we can use to maintain the property. And we're more than happy to comply with the recommended conditions in the February 26, 2025 report in the event the project is approved by the board.
Ms. Winter, do you have any questions for this witness or any comments?
I don't have any questions. Like you said, it's a 96 square foot, or sorry, 75 square foot shed on a 49 acre lot. Same thing with the pad. It really is de minimis for those particular variances.
Okay. Mr. Canjiano, do you have any?
No comments.
Any members of the board have any questions on this witness? Mr. Napolitano?
Sorry, did we clarify when these dumpsters will be picked up and switched out? Like, is this like a time limit? Not before 7 a.m., not between the hours of school kids going to the bus stops? Like, I'm just wondering. I know you already had dumpsters there before, but this is going to be a different truck.
Sure. These are different than the dumpsters that
Right.
are placed throughout the development. In other words, homeowners aren't going to, dump their
Gotcha.
trash and stuff. This is ongoing maintenance throughout the week.
Okay.
No one's working at 10 o'clock at night, and no one's working,
6 a.m. Okay.
Before the dark. So
Yep.
it's just ongoing, but it's not open to the public
Right.
for them to have a party and dump beer bottles in our dumpsters. That's throughout the development.
No other questions by members of the board? Are there any members of the public who have any questions on the two witnesses that are here before us tonight? Hearing and seeing none from the public. Any other items that the board would like to bring up? Our professionals? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor?
We would respectfully request that someone make a motion to approve our application. And again, as I stated, the recommended conditions, I can put it on the record, but we are more than happy to comply with the conditions of the February 26, 2025 memorandum.
All right, are there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application at this time? In favor of this application at this time? Hearing and seeing none, this closes the evidentiary portion of tonight's hearing. Do I hear any discussion? Actually, I'd like to ask our attorney to indicate the things that have been agreed to as conditions before.
I'm sorry. Thank
Go
you.
for
Yeah. So I reviewed the notes from the prior meetings, and all of those conditions were addressed in the revisions that were described tonight. So the main conditions are just compliance with the board planner and board engineer's recommendations, and then any other recommendations from the township reports that were received from either the forester, fire department, sewer, all those. So
That's agreeable.
All right, any discussion by members of the board, or do you just want to go right to a resolution?
Just one more question,
Mr. DePiero.
if I may. There's no lights there, are there? In other words, someone's not gonna deliver material at night?
No, we don't have materials delivered at night. We don't have work delivered at night. That's why it's not like a night tennis court. There are no floodlights that there's any work at ever that's going to be performed there in the evening.
Okay.
So it's daylight weekday work.
Okay.
Any comments, or do we want to move to a resolution?
Is the shed going to be locked? Can people get in this thing? I mean, I don't know what's going to be in there besides you said gasoline, but is this going to be locked?
We did have a shed there, and we would just store equipment that we didn't want, to just contain. We did have it removed because it was a structure, and we wanted to go before the board. The suggestion was to, give me 1 second, it's to store specialized materials mitigating spillage of automotive fluids. There's going to be nothing of value in the shed that we're concerned about, and it's only going to have access or being used. It wouldn't cause a nuisance. We're not putting anything of value. There are no tools that someone
Right.
could steal that we
Copper
would put
tools, stuff like that, yeah.
in an outdoor shed.
So your client is going to follow appropriate safety measures to
Yes.
keep dangerous things away from children or whatever.
Yes.
There's a gate that locks on this is in the front. Is that right? There is, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments?
And just again, the maintenance yard is not open to the residents or
Mhm.
public. It's exclusively for the owner.
All right, I guess we have anything further before we move to a resolution at this point? Or have I got somebody willing to put together a resolution?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Didich,
a motion to approve application number 24:510, Noel Manor Associates, North Beverick Road, Block 497, Lot 2, minor site plan with C variance for a maintenance yard.
do I have a second?
Second Hernandez?
Nora, would you call the roll, please?
Didich?
Yes.
DePiero?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Neely?
Yes.
Nath?
Yes.
Napolitano?
Yes.
Shaw?
Yes.
Smith?
Abstain.
And Dinsmore.
Before I vote, I'm going to say this is a long way away from the application we saw some time ago. So I'm going to vote in favor.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the board and planner and attorney and expert, and we were happy to work with you, and we were happy for the suggestions you made for everyone's benefit. So thank you very much.
Okay. So our final item for tonight's agenda is 169 Lackawanna Avenue, Block 136, Lot 33, redevelopment plan, consistency review. So I'm going to turn to our planner, Ms. Winter, and she's going to tell us what we're doing with this.
Sure. All right. So for the 169 Lackawanna Avenue study area, it was determined by the council to be an area in need of redevelopment on December 17th of 2024. Having declared the area in need, the next step is to develop a redevelopment plan to provide for the orderly redevelopment of the study area. This redevelopment plan for the 169 Lackawanna Ave redevelopment area, which we have in front of us tonight, is before the planning board for master plan consistency review. This is a 20.63 acre single lot at the end of Lackawanna Avenue in the SED 5A Specialized Economic Development District. Permitted uses in that zone include scientific or research labs, fabrication and assembly of products, processing and warehousing facilities for finished products and materials, digital data storage warehouses. Offices are also permitted as an ancillary use to other principal permitted uses and limited to 30% of the floor area. The property currently houses a commercial office building and associated parking lots and improvements. The permitted uses in the proposed redevelopment area will be warehouses, and those uses customarily included in a warehouse use. Warehouse is defined as a building utilized primarily for the storage and distribution of goods, which may also include accessory logistics services such as labeling, breaking bulk cardboard boxes into manageable packages, inventory control and management, light assembly and/or manufacturing, order entry and fulfillment, packaging, pick and pack, price marking, and ticketing, transportation arrangement, your typical warehouse uses. In addition, up to 50% of the warehouse building may be occupied by a craft distillery or microbrewery, film studios, or audio recording studios. Craft distilleries or microbreweries are as defined by the state statute, but want to point out that the operation of a restaurant in association with either of those uses would not be permitted. Accessory uses include offices that are accessory to the principal use, retail spaces that can occupy no more than 10% of the area, and for the craft distilleries or microbreweries, that would include a tasting room within that 10%. Other typical accessory uses, such as parking, EV parking, security guard houses, maintenance buildings, solars, etc., would also be permitted. So the bulk requirements here are largely consistent with the underlying zoning, with a few exceptions. The minimum lot size is actually increasing from 5 acres to 10. The minimum residential buffer is increasing from 50 feet to 150 feet. The maximum impervious coverage is being reduced from 70% to 60%, and the maximum height is the biggest change, which would be increasing from 45 feet to 60 feet, and if cold storage were proposed, they could go up to as high as 80. So with the exception of the height, the changes are actually more restrictive than the underlying zoning. So, as to the consistency with the most recent master plan back in 2020, the areas identified on the future land use map for light industrial warehousing. The proposed warehouse use is consistent with that designation. It further encourages the incorporation of appropriate landscape design, buffers, and performance standards, which this plan does. Further, the master plan encourages, as part of its economic policy, redevelopment of existing commercial and office areas that are vacant or in need of reinvestment, and that the township support development that responds to the market demands for modern uses, which I believe this plan does, especially with the inclusion of such things as microbreweries, craft distilleries, and the visual and audio recording studios. So it's my suggestion that it would be consistent with the master plan. And if anyone has any questions, as always, I'm happy to answer.
Do microbreweries and distilleries need a liquor license?
Yeah, so they would have to get the state required licenses to operate. This would just permit their use. They would still need to do everything else.
Any questions of the planner on this? So they could conceivably subdivide the property into two pieces because they both be 10 acres.
Yes. They would most likely have some issues with placement of buildings and such, especially with the 150-foot buffer from residential is basically what's existing now, and it's largely not something they could even get a variance for because a lot of it is related to wetlands and the wetlands buffer.
Okay, so practically, there's no way that they can really subdivide.
It would be unlikely.
Okay, just trying to think of if we could end up with two projects here rather than one. All right.
If this were two projects, these B list categories, the distillery, microbrewery, film studios,
Right.
audio, that would be basically half of each half of the property, right?
Right. They could only
So
be
each
50%
property
of the
can only
warehouse
then-
building.
We wouldn't have a standalone
No.
of any of these.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thanks.
The only standalone you potentially have is your typical warehouse.
Okay.
But with some of these warehouse spaces, they do get broken up into smaller spaces and used for other uses. This just helps.
So there was a whole article in the Wall Street Journal last week about the need for small warehouses, strangely enough. I personally don't think that need is a long-term one. I think it's a current one.
Right.
But there's definitely a shortage of small warehouses. But again, if we were to make a whole bunch of small warehouses, I think we'd end up with a bunch of empty small warehouses over the long term. So, you know. Any other questions? Councilwoman, did you have any comments from your discussions that you want to bring to the board?
No, not really. I mean, I did talk to Matt McGrath a little bit about this before, because I know you guys were talking about this, and where it's located, and based on the master plan and what I'm seeing here, I don't really have anything of concern. Not that I'm thrilled with lots of warehouses, but but I understand what it's all about. And the impervious coverage being less is always fine. The height differences, that's not, I mean, that's still within our, is that a variance? The
No,
40, it's not
the
60.
redevelopment plan allows
Allows
for
you
that
to do
higher.
that.
Right.
Okay.
Is this
No, I-
public comment meeting?
You don't have to, but you
I try to.
Yep.
Okay. All right, are there any other comments or questions by members of the board? I'm going to ask at this time if there are any questions or comments by the public on this application or on this area in need of redevelopment plan. Hearing and seeing none. All right, what else do we need?
So we're looking for a motion to determine that the redevelopment plan is not inconsistent with the master plan, the double negative, and then any recommendations, any other recommendations that you want to send to the council.
Okay. Does everybody understand that? Any further discussion, or do we want to move to a resolution finding that this redevelopment plan is not inconsistent with the master?
I'll make a
plan?
motion.
Thank you, Mr. Napolitano.
Motion to approve that 169 Lackawanna Avenue, Block 136, Lot 33, redevelopment plan consistency review is not inconsistent with our redevelopment plan.
Exactly. You got it.
Master plan. Sorry about that, master plan.
I was about to say you got it in one, but you didn't quite.
Yeah, almost.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Nora, would you call the roll, please?
Didich,
Yes.
DePiero,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Mealy,
Yes.
Mass,
Yes.
Napolitano.
Yes?
Shaw,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right, very good. Is there anything else that needs to come before this board tonight? Hearing and seeing none, I think we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
A second. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed gets to stay here.
Okay, so.
Why does it have to be a double negative?
What's the language in the statute?